Welcome to sunny San Diego for Gravity this season. This series of videos will bring you principle-driven strategies and techniques for the sports of swimming, biking, and running, kind of a triathlon theme. So we hope that these videos bring you innovative ways to think about how you're training your clients, whether recreationally or competitively, for any of the following sports. Nothing like a good bike ride in San Diego. And according to the U.S. Bike Retailer Association, there's over 64 million of us out there. Welcome to this segment where we're going to focus on biking or cycling, whichever you'd like to call it. Let me catch my breath for a moment from that long ride. With biking is very difficult to assess biomechanically when you're off the bike. So this particular segment is going to focus on the lower body mechanics with an emphasis on kind of avoiding some of the overuse problems that bikers face in the future. With biking, you've got tons of different types. You've got mountain biking, you've got road cycling, we've got unicycling. If you want to get into some of that, that might be fun. All of these different types of biking require a different amount of energy, different kinetics, different drivers, whether you're climbing or gliding or sprinting, whether you're standing, whether you're seated, in the saddle, out of the saddle. It is a very diverse sport. We think of it as a very sagittal plane driven exercise or sport, and we're always just doing this, but when you start to add different ground structures, when you're working on whether you're on a track, whether you're on a path, whether you're in a trail in the mountains, it's going to be all different. Now, because the theme is triathlon, we're hoping that everything that we do today kind of is across the board. So whether you're working with a mountain biker, a road cyclist, a triathlete, whoever, we're going to focus on some things with how the lower body works and talk a little bit about the principles. Regarding principles, you look at bikers, especially triathletes or cyclists, and these are lean, mean machines. And those guys don't want to put any muscle on, right? They want everything to be that endurance type muscle. Use oxygen, keep lean, stay lean, small, because the more you weigh, the more you got to pump up the hills. When you're looking at a biker and they're in that position of flexion, they're operating in a hip flexed position, and to be able to get power out of the legs, you're using the hips, the quads, the hamstrings, the muscles of the calf, all in kind of a flexed position. So over time, that can create problems with overuse. With regards to the power, we're going to focus on developing power, but also go into some activities where we get out of that sagittal plane. We go over into the frontal plane, we get into the transverse plane and make little tweaks so that the body doesn't just adapt to one specific line or one specific pedal. Now we're talking about, we've got clips, we've got toe harnesses, you've got people who just ride without any of that. And your feet in the clips can be at different positions in that transverse plane. So we know there's lots of techniques. Use them if you got them. We're just going to focus in on trying to keep our athlete or our client healthy so they can enjoy the sport of bicycling over the lifetime. So if we're going to develop power in the legs, and we're going to get the proprioceptors fired up, and we're going to get an eccentric lengthening, we're going to start off with a cyclist. We need a cyclist. Guess what? It's Nicole again. She is our super athlete. Now what Nicole's going to do is we're going to go into some reverse lunges. You know the reverse lunge? It's all we're going to do is tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit more like a biking lunge. So what she does is we'll start with the nice low incline. And the thing is here to try to, our functional knee is going to be the knee that's the right foot that's on the ground. And what Nicole is going to do is she's kind of going to bring your weight a little bit more forward. She's going to just go through a couple lunges, but really kind of get a rotary motion of that knee so that we get the calf eccentrically lengthened, we get the quad, the glutes eccentrically lengthened, and even the hamstrings with her. She's got a little bit of lordosis that helps to lengthen the hamstring. So we know the lunge. We know what the reverse lunge is. How can we tweak it to help keep our athlete healthy? And to develop power, so if they're going over different terrain or they're going up a hill or doing something different in cycling, that they're adapted to that, not just one plane. So what we do is we're going to tweak the feet. And if these are my feet, we've got sagittal plane variations, we've got frontal plane variations, and we've got transverse planes variations. So what we'll do first is kind of tweak the frontal plane. So we're going to put let's go your right foot out a little bit, maybe even a little further, and put her foot up on this. Now this is going to be goofy. She hasn't even tried these yet, so we're going to learn as we go. And what that does is it just gives a little different stimulus to the lower leg, to the hips, to that hip flexor is getting lengthened nicely. And then maybe I could have her bring her knee up a little more forward, as long as that doesn't cause any knee pain. And then we may bring her leg all the way across, so you might want to hop across there. And now she's kind of straight on, so again, it's going to give a different stimulus. So if she goes through a few of these, very nice. How's that feel?
Good.
Okay. It's okay not to be so symmetrical sometimes, you know? And then if we go into, with a sagittal plane tweak, it's more of just how far back you go. So we'll go right into transverse plane and maybe just put your foot out to where it was neutral before, like right here. And what we'll do is we'll externally rotate that knee, this guy here. Not a whole lot, just a tweak. And let's see how this goes. As she goes into this, we still want to see good tracking of the knee over the toe. And just a small motion. We really want to almost make it look like you're pedaling a bike here. How's that feel?
Okay.
Okay, and then just go internal rotation. That was a good transition. Very nicely done. And so we're getting the lateral, the medial, all the quads, the glutes are getting stimulated in a different plane. The foot's going through something different, so all the muscles or the tendons that drive behind the heel up past the calcaneus and attach, your perineals, the tibialis posterior, all those muscles are being stimulated, not just in one plane, but in all three planes. Real quick, when we go over, if you look at, if someone's on a bike and they're going through that motion, and if we can imagine that this is 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and back to 12 o'clock, we can get real nitty gritty with the biomechanics of that and say, okay, at the top, your glutes and your quads are going to be responsible for developing the power, and we could even throw in a tweak like, well, plus they're going to be grabbing that other handle and pulling against it to drive into the pedal. As you start to get down towards 2 o'clock, then your hamstrings and your calves start to kick in. And as you go down to 5 o'clock, the quads and the glutes start to relax a little bit. And as you come past 6, then you're looking primarily at the hamstrings and the calves. And as you start to come up, your other foot's kind of driving the pedal, so you have a little bit of momentum, and the hip flexors then start to fire to bring the pedal up. So if you want to take a look at that lunge and figure out where it is you want to focus on, if you're looking at, I want to focus on the downstroke or the down pedal, or I want to focus on getting my client to get that pull to bring the pedal up to assist the other leg in driving the pedal down, you can get real tricky with that. You can use a medicine ball, you can pre-position in a certain position, you can have all types of fun with that, but we'll end up spending a month on that. So we're going to go into our next exercise, which is we're going to focus in on the calf. And for that, I'm going to place the telescoping squat stand on the lower base of the GTS. You notice my terminology is just perfect, right? Yes, we'll crank it up. Calf's big, strong muscle, a lot of torque. Feeling sassy, are you?
Sassy.
And again, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a conventional heel raise or calf raise, whichever you call it. I never understood calf raise, or I always saw it as a heel raise because the heel comes up. Is that we'll just go through, let's go through a unilateral version to really get you pumped up. We'll use that left leg. And we've got here your traditional heel raise or calf raise. You've got a nice soft knee, eccentrically lengthening the muscle, concentrically exploding. Now what we can do is just start to tweak the different planes. So we might say, all right, let's do a frontal plane tweak. Let's bring your foot, maybe you can go all the way out here. I don't know if that'll work, but that's what these videos are all about, is trying different techniques. So now she's going to get a little different stimulus. Her foot is kind of, it's more inverted as she goes through the heel rise. So maybe she's taking a right turn and cranking up a hill, might help. And then the opposite side, maybe you can use your right foot for this time and bring it all the way over across the opposite side. So now we do a heel raise with the foot that's very everted now, so she's getting a lot of stimulation through the arch, which crosses her underneath here and attaches up into her, it stimulates the perineals. How's that feel?
Good.
Feel all right?
Yeah.
Again, keeping your athlete healthy over the lifetime so they can enjoy that sport. And then we have, my favorite, the transverse plane. So we'll go back to left foot, and that just means we're going to internally rotate for a few repetitions, and it might feel real goofy. That's okay. It might also feel like a good strong right turn on a bike. And then we go over to internal rotation. So she just repositions her foot. And again, that's going to go more into the medial calf. It's going to give a different set of stimulation up through the calf. Do you feel a difference in those? Different. Very good. So tweak the calf raise. Use that sagittal, use that frontal, use that transverse plane. Combine them to really get more bang for your buck with regards to a calf raise. Okay, next is going to be the scrunch. So I'm going to grab the scrunch board. And if you don't have the scrunch accessory, you can probably grab onto the lap bars somehow. Just kind of mimic what we're doing. Let me put this on here. Okay, we're all secure. And this is going to look just like if you're on I was going to say a tricycle, but it's more of a trike or a triathlete's bike, is that she's going to go into a kneeling position. And I'm going to have you exactly how your hands are. Now, what that looks like, maybe we'll bring your elbows in just slightly to look a little bit more like your elbows are down on those drops on the bike. So this, with specificity, fits into kind of a weight bearing at the upper body position. And then what we're going to do is kind of load the hips with the traditional scrunch. So if you haven't seen the scrunch board, there's videos available or something online that you can see to kind of get the overall gist. There are tons of different uses for this. This is just the traditional, what we call a scrunch. We didn't know what to call it, so we called it a scrunch. So we get an eccentric lengthening of the hip. Now, what I would emphasize on this is to go through full hip extension as long as there's no back pain, because what happens is the athletes, when they're biking, they don't come all the way to full extension. So this will help lengthen the hip to keep the hip healthy. And as she does that, she also gets a lengthening of the knee joint. If the knee is always in a flex position operating, then sometimes we'll want to open that knee up to make sure that where the muscles attach, the hamstrings, the gastroc comes up and attaches, the soleus, all getting a little bit of lengthening there. Now, what we can do to tweak this is we can maybe just use a single leg variation. We'll drive, maybe we'll just keep this leg static, just right about to where my hand is, so bring it up and we'll pause there. And she's just going to drive in that sagittal plane, and she gets a lengthening of the hip, and it's a concentric version because she's using her hip. And then we'll get goofy and kind of go out to that frontal plane, so she'll go out way across there. If you need to take a break, just go ahead and switch legs. And then if you want to get real goofy, then we get the transverse plane. Then we look like the dog in the fire hydrant, right? So you might want to shoot it this way. There you go. So you get a little bit of hip rotation, external shoulder or external hip rotation. And we're just driving the hip in all three planes. So the scrunch board can be a valuable accessory to use to help lengthen the hips. You are certainly going to feel the abdominals get turned on, the hip flexors, some of the quads get turned on. You're getting all that stimulation. If you want to tilt the knees one way or another, that's another way to tweak the transverse plane. And if you want to just drive the legs in different planes of motion, you'll have a whole new stimulus for that as well. Okay, next is going to be something pretty exciting. You may have not seen this accessory before. It is called the Cyclo Trainer. Again, this is just something to kind of have fun with today because we have it. It basically just attaches to the bottom of your GTS, and guess what? You've got a lower body ergometer on your hands now. So what we'll do is we'll keep this resistance about the same. And this is interesting because now we can get real specific with the pedaling of the bike. We can work on that metabolic conditioning because endurance is obviously a huge component of cycling. And we can work in a flex position. So the cool thing with this is that she can bring the glide board down and work in a flex position, or she can go all the way up and work to where she gets more hip and knee extension throughout that movement. You've got different resistance on here. You can go for time. And what I like to do when I'm working with this particular accessory, the Cyclo Trainer, is I like to fluctuate from low to high, low to high. So it almost mimics where you go, if you look at how the body is, if you were to imagine she's on a bike, it's almost like she's standing, kind of climbing or sprinting. So it's almost like standing on a bicycle and pedaling. So it's a little bit different, but you're getting that rotary motion, you're getting good healthy hip movement, good healthy knee movement, and you'll see that even her, we can change the driver pushing her heel down to get a little lengthening of the hip. And she's even doing cool things like internally rotating her feet. Externally, you can't go too external or you start hitting the Cyclo Trainer. But there's all kinds of variations with this. The resistance can be changed. We can do interval type of training where she sprints and then she goes through a nice long endurance phase. And it's a nice way to get more specific with the cyclist. Again, the emphasis with this whole video is to keep your client healthy, to avoid overuse problems that some bikers face down the road, and to keep them moving so they can enjoy the sport of cycling or biking or mountain biking or even unit cycling over the lifetime.